Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Chris Before Coffee. And today I am joined by Nick, aka Pie Rebel on Twitter. Say hello, Nick.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And so today we're going to talk about a couple of things. We wanted to talk about the Bitcoin tour, an idea that we've been mulling over for some time since the trip to America that Tom and I did. And we also want to talk about the underlying philosophy behind multi-signature Bitcoin addresses and the notion behind a distributed autonomous corporation, basically an idea that can become can take on a kind of personhood, a bit like a company can today, a corporation that can outlive its founders, but one that no one person can control and corrupt, so that allows for accountability within the financial structures, a separation of duties, separation of concerns, and one that rewards, honestly, the labor of the people within it. But before we go to that, we've actually got some breaking news. As I was preparing for today's show, we had an announcement from the state of New York announcing that they're going to be forcing individuals to apply for something called a bit license. Nick, talk us through it. You're muted.
It seems like what they're going to be doing is requiring anybody who's doing any sort of business with or in the state of New York. So if you do business with anybody in the state of New York or in New York, you're going to be required to file for a bit license. And I've read through a little more than half of the PDF that was released by Ben Losky, and I have to say it's kind of bogus. It really is written to appease the established financial institutions and not so much to allow like a flourishing entrepreneurial environment.
Right.
You have fees that aren't exactly laid out on how much they're going to be. You have requirements that just seem backwards as hell. You kill local bitcoins. Local bitcoins is dead in New York because of this licensing. I mean, there's no way an individual who's dealing maybe a couple bitcoins a week is going to be able to afford a bit license and do all the AML and KYC with all the clients with the very few amount of clients that they service. They're dead. They're dead in the water. So it just killed the little guy, and it's put up huge walls that are only those with the largest ladders are going to be able to climb.
So very helpfully on the Our Bitcoin Reddit account, we've got somebody who has created a TLDR, a too long didn't read. So because we've only just learned about this is breaking news, I've only sort of had 5 minutes to prep for this. Let's go through what American Bitcoin on Reddit has talked about. So Layer 1, we've got 45 days for existing businesses to comply with the new regulations and register with the state. Background check required for all employees and founders. Fingerprints of the above submitted to the FBI. Requires a bond held with New York State. Requires written approval of all new business activities and offerings. Requires that you keep 10 years of records of business transactions. Virtual currency accounts not active for 5 years must be handed over to the state.
Wait, can I make a comment real quick?
Yeah. Sure.
Can't some of this already be, like, I run a full node, all the business transactions are recorded. Look on the blockchain. Like, does that not cover that requirement?
Well, let's just carry on going through them because these are pretty ridiculous, okay? So retained earnings and profits of the company can only be invested in US dollars, federal bonds, state bonds, or money market funds, i.e. the stuff that doesn't really exist other than on the spreadsheets of some central banks. Mandatory reviews every 2 years, financial conditions, safety, soundness of business policies, quarterly financial statements required within 45 days of the closing of each quarter. Financial statements must be audited. Typical AML KYC requirements, that's know your customer and anti-money laundering, for anyone who doesn't know. Cybersecurity requirement requires security officer security plan, audits, backup plan. So you must have a plan, and we must know about your plan ahead of time. In marketing advertising, you must include license to engage in virtual currency business activity by the New York State Department of Financial Services, must disclose a long list of material risks with dealing with virtual currencies, e.g. not legal tender, not backed by any government. Yeah, as if that's a risk. If it's backed by a government, it's probably even more risky. So yeah, I love this. Okay, whose idea was this? Seriously, it's ridiculous. This is so. Let's talk about this idea of, like, you know, the 5 year. If your account hasn't been touched within 5 years, this only refers to businesses though. At what point does this kind of touch the individual, Nick?
I'm not sure, but I mean, what would you count an account? Because places like CoinKite or some that use multi-sig that don't really have access to your accounts, they just act as maybe like escrow or something. They can't move those coins without your permission anyway. So how are you supposed to turn over those accounts after 5 years of inactivity? How are they even supposed to do that? They can't do that without having to own more of the keys than they allow you to have. So any of these services like I don't know, how does this even affect blockchain, right? Because they're a repository for wallets. They don't own the private keys.
They have
you're
an
basically,
encrypted copy on their servers of the
yeah,
private
but they
keys.
have but they're the custodian of that wallet for you. They hold the information. So I mean, I'm not sure how this even affects them. Are they
Well,
going to be
they would
required?
fail some of the other tests in that document, because you saw that they actually have to show that they've got sound business practices. They have to disclose all of their risks. So they would probably be turned down for a license in the first place.
Yeah, right. So I'm not sure. This licensing doesn't like it really caters to established financial
Yes,
institutions.
that's
It's
the whole point.
like we saw at Coin Summit with Brock Pierce and a couple of those guys who were like, we need these regulations to guide our market. Blah blah blah. These are the kind of regulations they wanted right here.
So yeah, here we have entities are considered dealing in virtual currencies if they transfer bitcoins on behalf of one person. This includes Bitcoin tipping, change tip, mixers, blockchain.info, send shared, CoinJoin, dark wallet. They hold or have control over bitcoins for their users. This includes Coinbase, Circle, Get Address It, all exchanges. They buy or sell bitcoins as a business activity. This includes local Bitcoin sellers and Bitcoin OTC. That's the peer-to-peer, over-the-counter sort of service that has existed for a long time now. They create a virtual currency, even if it is decentralized. It includes creating altcoins. In fact, Satoshi would have committed a crime creating Bitcoin without registration. I wonder if these are regressive. I wonder if these go backdated laws. So I wonder if you can be found to have committed an offense if you did it in the past, even though they've only come up with the law now. They trade any virtual currency, even for another virtual currency. This includes altcoin exchanges. And obviously, this is just for the residents of New York State, right? Like, we have to make that pretty clear.
And businesses that will do business with people in the state of New York.
Hi, guys.
Hello,
So
Theo.
if you are from, let's say, California and want to do business with people in the state of New York, you're going to have to get a bit license.
Oh, I'm glad this is just for New York. I haven't heard about this, and I thought this was just going to be for the entire United States, and I was like, holy shit.
It's going to be the entire world, Theo. This is going to set precedents.
Yeah.
Other lawyers
You know,
are going to look at this and go, oh, I can't be bothered to think up my own laws. Let's just use New York's and just change a few things.
Yeah,
Let's fork New York's law.
Yeah, maybe. New York is weird. They have a few other weird laws, too, so I wouldn't be so surprised. For example, MMA is not allowed in New York, so mixed martial arts is not allowed. They've got a weird law about drink sizes. I mean, they do some weird stuff in New York, so they think they're better than everyone else, or I guess the people that are in the government, you know. And they've got really weird policing. I don't know if they have exactly policing laws, but they've got some really aggressive police tactics that are unofficial. Maybe I don't know if maybe some of them are partially official. I don't know, but New York has a history of making its own laws a little bit. But yeah, you're right. It has a danger of being a precedent. That would be really awful.
I'd like to comment. This comes right after we had such good news from Japan and their like hands-off guidance approach instead of a regulatory approach where they are looking to establish, you know, market regulations and licensing, etc. Now they're just looking to set guidelines and what would be considered best practices and whatnot. They're not there to, you know, make a put an iron fist on the market.
So if I have a I haven't gone through the whole Reddit thing. So if I have a online shop and I sell a good to someone and they pay in Bitcoin, but they live in New York, am I affected by that law, you think?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I,
Yeah.
I think it's only for people who are doing it in terms of like financial like things. I don't think you need a bit license if you're like selling goods and accepting Bitcoin, but like the company that may be taking Bitcoin and turning it into dollars for you would need to take, have a bit license or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
But somebody who's operating on local Bitcoins definitely would need to have a bit license.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I'm sure they don't like that. But yeah, like what I think you were saying earlier. Yeah. I mean, it's there's no way for any small person to meet all of those standards. It's basically even a small company can't meet all those standards. It's totally impossible. And I mean, that's okay. Then people will just go elsewhere. People will build businesses in another state, or okay, California said, I think they officially said cryptocurrencies are legal or something like that. So I mean, they'll just go to California or to a country where there's less issues. Right now in Germany, there's a big, nobody knows what's going to happen. There's a big issue with VAT, so sales tax, and they're talking about the tax authority said, yeah, it looks like we're going to have to put sales tax on if you sell Bitcoin for euros. So that's like another. But if I'm a company, if I'm a cafe and I accepted Bitcoin for beer, then I already charged 19% sales tax, and then I got to pay 19 cents again to set 19% again to sell my Bitcoin, which makes absolutely no sense. But they're regarding selling Bitcoins for euro as a special service, which goes under a different category. It's just technicalities, and they're just trying to figure out ways to kind of regulate it. But that's kind of slowed down adoption by companies because nobody knows for 100% sure what their tax obligation is going to be in 1 year. And if you're a business, that's really, really annoying. So I don't know.
What's going to be interesting is how other jurisdictions in the world respond to this, and whether or not this creates an opportunity for other states and governments to actually say, well, we're actually going to make this more appealing. We're going to make our jurisdiction more appealing to the innovative entrepreneurs. If New York doesn't want them, well, guess what? America is just one country among many. So
Yeah.
in a way, it's we're going to end up with a kind of a situation where the world is going to get smaller and smaller if you want to transact with your fellow human being, right? Because what the state does is it regulates our activities by giving us certain corridors within which we can behave. It wants to be the middleman. It doesn't want to be the entrepreneur. It wants to be the middleman between other entrepreneurs. And I wonder at what point the world will just get smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where there are only a few other nations. Maybe, we talked about it before, but the state of Tuvalu, a very, very small island nation, could actually give itself a competitive edge by adopting Bitcoin as its national currency. I mean, what's it got to lose, really? And actually, it would see, if it actually provided more value to the ecosystem itself, it could end up seeing, a massive appreciation in the price of its own currency, and then other governments would have to look at Bitcoin as legal tender.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I think that they run the domain .tv, and they've already made a lot of money for their country doing that. But yeah, why not? Why an island country like that could adapt it as a currency, or they could back their currency with it, and then other nations are going to have to take notice. It's already going on. Denmark announced they're not going to tax any cryptocurrencies at all. They said that's we're not going to tax that. That's not really, or even regulate it. They're pretty open to it, and I think we're going to see, some countries are going to come straight. I think France is more into they just busted a small exchange that wasn't, the exchange.
I bet France takes note of New York's regulations and probably takes like a similar following.
I agree. Yeah, probably you're right. So, but we're seeing that some countries or some states in America are showing their colors. They're going to say, okay, we're going to try to attract crypto businesses, or we're going to try to regulate this all to hell to either try to make a lot of money on it with tax revenue, or just get these people out of here because we don't want them.
Yeah, it's really interesting that the market is actually up on the news. That's very interesting. Why do you think that is? Why have we seen this huge uptick?
People are, I think it's, I don't know. I mean, we have to go to the poll box and ask, I guess. I think that people are getting a little bit immune. A lot of news is priced in. People are getting a little bit immune to all of the news every day. You know, just 6 months ago, if you just said the word China in a room, then everyone would freak out. You know what I mean? And now it's just like, who cares? Oh yeah, this state regulated. Who gives a oh, it's every day there's a lot of news, and people are pricing it in. It's I wouldn't say that the price is stable, but I think a lot of the effect the news has is definitely decreasing, positive or negative news. The effect that it used to have was a lot more dramatic. I mean, I haven't done research and tried to like map out when news events happened on the old charts or anything, but just from my subjective point of view, I think that a lot of the news people are just tired of hearing it. They're either in Bitcoin or they're not, and I'm not sure why there was an upswing. I have to maybe there was maybe they said okay now that there sometimes when there is a decision that's it's the same thing when companies release their reports. Right before they release the report is when everything gets priced in. And when the report comes out, as long as it meets expectations, then everything stays the same. But the big action happens when the report is different than the expectation. So maybe a lot of people bet on New York regulating, and then they say, okay, now the news is over, the date is it's finished, now let's move on.
Yeah, you buy on the rumor, you sell on the news, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think most people realize that, and so, um, yeah. Now, so the news and people bought on the news, maybe, and like I said, a lot in the past, a lot of these deadlines. What were these? There were like three of these like China deadlines. Some of them are artificial, like April 15th, or there was the auction deadline too. That was kind of like a deadline too. People thought something really big would happen, but all the action was before when the actual auction happened, there was no explosion or dump. It was all priced in before. And then, as long as the news isn't totally different than everyone expected, then there's no negative reaction.
Yeah. Nick, do you have any final thoughts? We can return to this another time, but I wanted to maybe if you've got anything else
I,
you want
I
to say.
just really think they took the wrong approach. I really wish they would have looked towards what Japan did recently with their hands-off approach and had taken that, because this is going to definitely cause other regions to look at this as guidance on what they should do. Because New York is a big player in the financial world. There's a lot of money at stake. There's a lot of people trying to be New York.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm not too happy about it, and yeah.
Well, I tell you what, why don't we, if you want to have your say on this, we've got a Q&A in the bottom left-hand corner of this video. I would like to propose a solution. We've talked about it before. It's this Bitcoin World Tour. So Thomas Hunt, aka Mad Bitcoins, and I raised about 4 Bitcoins, in fact, a little bit more than 4 Bitcoins to go to America earlier this year. And, oh, okay, I think my computer has crashed.
I hear you. Yeah, you guys raised 4 bit
Hello?
to come
Yeah,
to
yeah.
it.
Am I back? Am I back? My computer is just completely
Fine.
frozen, so I may have to restart this show. But if you can still hear me, yes, we basically raised about 4 Bitcoins, and it gave us an idea, which is that we should continue to do this and allow anyone else who is willing to try it out as well. So I've been playing around with Armory Wallet. I think what I'm going to have to do, because my computer is frozen, guys, I'm going to have to restart this Hangout again, which is a shame because we actually ended up getting quite a few viewers. But if you stick around, I will announce on Twitter a new link. I'm just going to restart my computer now, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
Hello?
I'm still here.
Yeah, are we? It says live. How do we turn that off?
We can't. Only the person that started the Hangout can do it. But you can hang up. But
Yeah, I think we should hang up and we'll get
okay, let's
back.
hang
Okay, I think I am back. Let me just get everything set up again. Okay, lovely. So I'm just inviting the guys back again. Thanks for staying with us. Thanks for being very, very loyal through those technical difficulties. So what I was going to demonstrate, let me just get Bitcoin Armory up. So as some of you may know, if you've been following me for a little while, I've actually been playing around with Bitcoin Armory and some of the kind of multi-signature capabilities that it has. And essentially what this allows, let's just see the 2 of 2 wallet. Okay, so that was, there it is, Lockbox. So this is the wallet that I set up with PyRebel, Nick, who is with us just now. And what this means is that you can create a Bitcoin address on your computer, and then you can send the full raw key. This is the raw key in here, the uncompressed version. What most people end up sending to is the compressed version, but this is the raw key. You send this raw key to a friend of yours who's also running Armory wallet, and they can import it and generate a lockbox. And what this does is it creates a lockbox signature like this one that the other person can import into their version of Armory. Now, all of this is public information. It doesn't matter that I'm showing it to you live on air. In fact, actually, I've just realized it's not even on the same window. Let me just show you that, because this is kind of ingenious, right? So it generates this lockbox signature that you can then send to a friend who's also running Armory. And this exposes no private information whatsoever. All you've done at the moment is you've just shared your Bitcoin public keys that anyone can see. And what this enables you to do is enables you to solicit funds. So this was the, let me just get that up again. So this allows you to, let's see if we can get the QR code. So this is the QR code. In fact, there we go. That Nick, who's just joined us, hi Nick. And it allows you to send money to that address, but only Nick and I can spend money. Both of us have to agree on where that money is going to go. I cannot spend Nick's part of the transaction because only Nick has the private key that sits on his computer in California, and only I can sign my side of the lockbox from the UK because only I have the private keys there. What public-private key cryptography allows you to do is it allows you to display public information that isn't sensitive without exposing the private part of that transaction. So you can share your public keys, the same with PGP cryptography. You can share your public keys with anyone, but only you have the ability to generate a signature privately on your computer. And what this does is it allows for the separation of duties within autonomous corporations. So the idea was that we would go around the world and we would try to get villages and towns, not necessarily big municipalities, but just kind of like small towns and villages to adopt Bitcoin, that we would go in, we would airdrop on them like a memory stick like this one, and it would have Linux, Ubuntu, Linux Tails, it would have open source software, it would have all of the Bitcoin software, a ready downloaded version of the blockchain, which currently stands at about 24 gigabytes. It's pretty big. And what this would do, it was basically, it would bootstrap the global economy from the bottom upwards. So Nick, talk us through. You had some interesting ideas. Welcome back, first of all.
Oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, yeah, I like that idea. I think we should bring like enough USBs for everybody to have at least, you know, a wallet that doesn't need the blockchain. You know what I mean? What's one of those, like Electrum, I think, is one that doesn't use the whole blockchain, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, get a nice secure Linux distro on there. Everybody can put their own password to log in, and whenever they want to use their Bitcoin, they can use that wallet to, maybe we can load up like 50 cents of Bitcoin for each person or $1 or whatever, so they can practice sending to each other. I like that idea. I like loading up with a USB stick for them to just go any computer, because that's awesome.
Well,
I need to do that I only
one of
have
the
one
other
on my own stuff.
One of the other things it's good for is distributing the blockchain itself, which is a vital part of Bitcoin's network security, right? So you want as many copies of the blockchain distributed all over the world, but you want to help people because at 24 gigabytes, it takes over a day. I mean, for me to install the Qt wallet the other day, even with the download from the torrent file, it still took 24 hours for me to get up and running. It's a long time.
Yeah, this is why I said we would need to target places that have just good enough infrastructure. You know what I mean? We can't go to places that are still maybe stuck on dial-up. We need places that at least have some basic level of broadband or cellular connection, maybe 3G or whatever. Because we could at least transfer blockchain over 3G connection, no problem.
Yeah, so you basically you would have, as an individual, you would be able to raise funds for a particular part of the world, which would then you would go in with an ATM, Bitcoin ATM, which is open sourced at Skyhook, that's Carl Drake's project. You would go in with all of these open source tools and you would give them everything that they needed to start right away. You could even possibly even persuade a mining company to subsidize the cost of some mining infrastructure to help distribute the actual hash rate, because at the moment, I mean, you were talking to me last night on Twitter, you were telling me about these big, Bitcoin farms, these mining farms in China and Japan, right? So it's very, very concentrated at the moment. So these few individuals that own the fabs, that own the actual, machinery, that are able to dominate most of the network.
Yeah, and then now those places are doing franchising. Maybe there could be a way we could work in getting one of them to do a franchising deal with these places, so they can just set up and they can have their own Bitcoin stream to at least fund their local economy for whatever. You know what I mean? Maybe they have a Bitcoin day, once a month or something, where everybody comes and they trade their Bitcoins for different, goods, or I don't know. Maybe a carnival or something where Bitcoins are used to buy your tickets on the rides or play the games or something like that.
Yeah, and so then you would have a BitTorrent running, which would be from everywhere in the world. You would have lots and lots of nodes that were distributing the bootstrap.dat file. You would be able to give everyone a copy of the bootstrapped folder for their local node, the full node that they would be running. So you would have one trusted member in that particular village or town, say, or just a small group of people that everyone agrees when we get there, like, who's the person you trust the most? Who's the person that does all the organizing, who puts in the most time without even waiting for a thank you, right? Who is that person? You give that person a Linux box. It's got all the tools all pre-built. You give them support on a worldcryptonetwork.com. We can set up a forum there. And then they can start handing out Electron wallets or multi-bit wallets that are so-called thin clients. And what that means is that you don't have to download the whole blockchain to get up and running. In fact, multi-bit only downloads the blockchain from when you first set up your wallet. So you can set up a wallet in like a minute as compared to a day if you want to use the full Qt client.
Oh, yeah, I think Theo wants...
No.
Hey, Theo, welcome back.
Hey, what's up? Oh, no, I was just listening to your conversation. Yeah, I think that that, like you said, the advantage of multi-bit is that it doesn't take a whole day or even days to download the whole blockchain, and that and I even found out that there is a Doge bit or Doge bit. There's like a Dogecoin multi-bit wallet, because the blockchain got so big for Dogecoin that they even put out a thin client Dogecoin wallet. So it can be done for other coins, or there could be other thin wallets coming. But probably in the future, when the blockchain does get huge or a lot bigger, there's going to have to be some thinking about how many nodes are being run, and you got to keep the network healthy with some nodes also. And if everyone's running a thin client, that's not good for the whole network in general. But I think we're far away from that right now. But multi-bit is great because it just takes a second to load, and for people that are learning, I think.
That's right. I think one of the things that I'm already doing is I'm doing talks throughout the UK, where I'm going into councils, universities, businesses. I was at the Lloyd's Banking Group a couple of weeks ago to tell them about, the changes that are taking place, and really to kind of educate and inspire people. And what I find is that at the end of those talks, there are usually a small group of people who really get what you're saying, and they get that this is the future, and this change is real, and they need to educate themselves about it. And my purpose here is not to try and like give everyone the answers as if I've got something that's ready made, and all you've got to do is learn about it and then you'll see the light the same way that I did. I think the role here is to set up a dialogue between people on the ground and the developers, the engineers. That I think we need to go back to some of the early principles in the 80s and the 90s of human-centered design, which I think Bitcoin is sorely lacking at the moment. So it can also be good for the Bitcoin businesses. The question for me is, how do we make this activity sustainable in a world where, as I see it, the middle classes are being hollowed out, a lot of the old jobs are being automated away by the very technology that we ourselves provide the demand for as consumers. So I almost feel like we didn't really ever want those jobs in the first place. Most of my friends that are lucky enough to have jobs usually just end up spending most of their time shuffling emails, doing spreadsheets, and preparing a PowerPoint presentation for the boss, right? Because he has to persuade another group of people over there that they should give him their hard-earned money in exchange for some widget or some service that he's got to offer. So I wonder, like, how as content makers and people who are, amateur enthusiasts or very enthusiastic end users who have more than just marketing knowledge, right? We actually get this stuff because we spend all of our free time playing around with these neat tools. We're not necessarily good enough to be coding it, but we are, eloquent enough that we can communicate about it effectively and get other people to understand it too.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. Sell T-shirts? I don't know. I mean, it's.
Well, I'm wearing the Bitcoin Not Bombs shirt that's made by Darby Barker. It's a brilliant logo. He's very, very good at that, and he raises quite a lot of money that way. But I was thinking we can actually use, well, what I prepared for the show were some multi-sig paper backups in the Armory wallet. So here's an example of one. And what this allows you to do is you can create one Bitcoin wallet in Armory that can produce, to all intents and purposes, an infinite number of Bitcoin addresses, okay? And then you can actually back up that wallet on paper up to divisibility of up to 7 sheets. And what it says is, okay, you've got 7 copies, slightly different copies of this backup of this wallet, and you need, in order to get the funds out of this wallet, you need 5 of the 7 people to enter these unique codes. On each sheet of paper there is a unique code, and you need 5 of the 7 in order to restore those funds. So what you would have in an autonomous distributed organization, as I see it, is you would have like an elite 7 people that would all come to one place, and you would all kind of hash out the philosophy. What is the driving motivation that is steering this corporation? You would publish that on GitHub or somewhere publicly. You would then, each of you, generate one of the 7 of these sheets of paper, okay? So that 5 of the 7 of you at any point in time can resurrect that wallet, okay? And all of the various addresses and all of the funds that are associated with it. And then what I think you do is the person that is in charge in each period, let's say you have a period of 3 months, so you separate it up into quarters. What you do is you don't elect the person in charge. I think the person in charge should be selected by a random process. So let's say take the first number. Take the first number in the next blockchain, the next block of the Bitcoin blockchain. Let's take the next nonce, okay, that's found, and then whichever number it is the number of the person that is in charge. Each one comes with, like, this is sheet number 3, for example, right?
Yeah.
So then you would actually elect a random leader every quarter. So you wouldn't know necessarily whether you were going to be in charge. You would just know that you might be in charge in the next quarter. And then that way you'd get around of a lot of the perverse incentives that you find in politics, where the people in charge just get better at getting re-elected each time. Do you see what I mean? But those 7 would all know that they were co-responsible for the funds of this organization.
And so the 7 keys is like the main wallet, and it's a symbol, and it symbolizes a share in this autonomous company basically as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And what it would allow you to do, I'm just seeing if I can pull up Armory here. So if I set up like a test wallet. So this won't be the actual one, but this is like a test wallet. I thought I'd show everyone at home. Here we go. So what you'd do is each district of the world would have their own. So I set up like one for Manchester, New Hampshire, USA, one for Wuhan in China, Eldoret, Kenya, somewhere else. And like each place could be, let's say, voted on by people across the world. And the way they would vote for these places is by sending funds, like 1 millibit to each address. And then you would have like the website. I did a few kind of mock-ups in Balsamic. Let me just pull those up. So in this one. So you would have a web page where people could come to, and you could elect your local town or village. You don't even have to come from there. If you've ever been somewhere and you think it would be really cool, if you can nominate it in this box, okay? And then we go off and we generate a QR code that's part of this wallet in Armory. Now, the thing about, I should say something about hierarchical deterministic wallets, okay? So a hierarchical deterministic wallet is a Bitcoin wallet that can generate a deterministic set of Bitcoin addresses, okay? So if you have like one root password, that one root password can generate a predictable set of other passwords, a predictable set of other Bitcoin addresses. So it doesn't matter who has a copy of that root key, which we've seen separated into 7 pieces there. You can just separate that up over those people, and they can create the same addresses again on all of their individual computers. And then you create one address for all of these people, and then when you raise enough funds to get to this place, you then send out like a Bitcoin angel or whatever we want to call it, some kind of emissary, to kind of go out there, and then they kind of airdrop all this kind of open source software and all this kind of hardware. You know, maybe some of the open source point of sales that we're working on at Feathercoin, that kind of thing.
Maybe so be a couple people. That way there could be a split up an effort. Maybe somebody focuses on, you know, the elite 7 or whoever you're going to pick to be like the leaders of the community, and then somebody else focuses on, you know, educating just people on basic wallet usage, etc. Like Theo was saying at the those crypto meetups that he had gone to.
Yeah. So I made crypto party. So I made a little like a draft for the Bitcoin party, what I call it now. So yes, it's just like what I was describing. You know, I mean we can't call them bit angels, but bit guides or whatever. You know, and it's just like a basic. When you were to go to these towns, what would you do? How would you do a kind of workshop with people that are totally new, that are what I would call crypto illiterate, you know, that don't have any contact with Bitcoin and they don't know what PGP is or whatever. I mean, you just go into the room and you go, how many people know what PGP is? And those people that raise their hand, they could maybe go to like group number 2. And the other people who has ever had contact with Bitcoin and has a wallet, they're like, okay, you guys go over here. And everyone else, you go over here, and the people in the beginner group, you know, download multi-bit and so on. You show them the basics, and then the other group can go on and do something else. You can see who knows about cold storage, or who knows, or who doesn't, or who has a question about that, and then you can, depending on what's needed, you could, you know, go on from there. And then you could even have, you could even have, if it could be that there's someone else there that even knows. Is even, you know, knows a bit about Bitcoin, then you could have them help with the first group, you know, and they could continually have these events over and over. So you wouldn't have to always travel the world. It would just be the initiation, and this could be a self-sustaining thing where they, you know, have this kind of meetups or these kind of parties, Bitcoin parties, you know, regularly. I think party is just so that it's not a like traditional thing with, just like I was saying, like with the beamer and everyone is sitting down and looking forward, like in school or something, that it's a little bit more relaxed. And there's a few reasons for that. There's a reason so that it's not hierarchical, and there's also the reason that people don't feel stupid. You know, you don't need to talk down to people. And sometimes, without us knowing it, when we do these kind of frontal presentations, sometimes it comes across kind of like talking down to people sometimes. You can go over that edge sometimes really easy. Okay, I like the website. Looks
Yeah, so I'm just putting it together. This is a piece of software called Balsamic, spelt with a Q at the end. I really like it just for putting it together. I've done design and UX stuff before, so I just like throwing mock-ups together to kind of give like a visual sense of how it should look. One of the things that really annoys me about a lot of entrepreneurs today is that the first thing they do is they come up with the logo and they come up with the name and they try to patent it and they look into all kinds of like, how can I own this? And the point isn't, I think, in this day and age, isn't to come up with an idea and then protect it. The only ideas that I think are going to succeed in the future are the ones that work well even when everyone knows them at the same time, right? So if you have an idea now, the last thing you want to do is try and protect it, because information wants to be free and it will spread. There's no way that you can keep it private forever. So the marginal cost of keeping it private has got so much now that the feedback that you would get on this idea is actually more important than any strategic advantage you would gain from patenting it or trademarking it and things like that. The only thing I think you need to be wary of at the moment is when someone else masquerades or tries to troll you. So we had this at Feathercoin where people started setting up competing Facebook accounts and Twitter accounts, and we actually did find that was annoying because it ended up confusing members of the public that weren't sure which Twitter account was real. So it wasn't too much hassle. We sent a letter to Twitter or email to Twitter. We had to show proof of address and things like that. But then Twitter gave us the @Feathercoin account because it's not in Twitter's interest either to have someone trolling a legitimate business or a legitimate open source community as we were. So those are the only kinds of things I think you have to worry about. That's why I'd like to see more of these kind of town hall meetings like we're having now, where we just get the idea out straight away. Like as soon as you have the idea, tell someone about it, because your duty is to the idea itself, not to you. Right, you're not there to make sure that you look good and to make sure that you get lots and lots of profit. You've got to give as if you've got nothing to gain in return, right? Just give like your life is going to end tomorrow. And I hope, my anticipation is that in this new kind of post-scarcity economic society that we're entering in now, is that you will be okay, that people will remember that. Your reputation and the trust that you build with the people around you is way more important than what's in your bank account right now. I think people should be stacking trust. I think what you're seeing now with the all-time highs in the stock market represents the end of an era. I don't think it represents the beginning, just in the same way that I don't think Facebook represents the beginning of a new era. I think it represents the end of an old one. It's where the industrial era met the digital era. And it was like the last big, firework of that industrial age where you've got to mechanize everything and everything's got to be repeatable. So I think from now on, I don't want to see anyone like, trying to like claim ownership over anything. I want to see people just going out and just doing stuff. And like I say, like Tom and me and a few other people, we've already been doing this anyway. It's the question is like, how do we make this sustainable? So if we can start raising money for individual trips, the money that you raise for us to go to this town, what we'll do is we'll find someone who is a member of the World Crypto Network Forum. And I mean, for example, like Nick, how much vetting should there be on someone? Like, because we talked about this before, the idea behind World Crypto Network is anyone can be a broadcaster.
I think it depends. It depends on how much of a representative they are of you, for instance. Like, how much of a representative do you want this person to be of you is how much you should bet them. Like, I think we should have an open source wireframe, so anybody could take what we do and replicate it, but at the same time, if anybody wants to be affiliated with, we should have a rigorous, going through on them. Like, if I don't want somebody representing me who's going to go and rip off the community.
Yeah, exactly. I think I like the don't be a dick principle. That's been around on the internet for quite some time. Wikipedia operate that. So I think rather than reinventing the wheel, we should look at how other successful communities online have managed it. So we could do that, but then I also think that Like if somebody came to us and said, okay, I want to host my own show, or I want to be one of these ambassadors, I want to go to these towns and take like, you know, one of these Linux boxes with the Skyhook, etc. I think what it should be is they should only want to join in if they feel that what they have will contribute, will add more to what we've already got. And we should basically only be vetting with the interest of furthering this idea. So we're really loyal to this idea, and that's where all these multi-sig, you know, backups come into play. Because if any one person starts to get power crazed, it only takes 5 of the 7 to fork the whole project and start it again somewhere else. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no.
That's what I like about this kind of elasticity, where you get it, where, you know, one person can't, because one of the other things that happens in startups as well is one person will like buy the domain name, another person will have like the passwords to the VPN or the VPS, right? So they've got all the FTP accounts and stuff, and they hold it secretly just in case they need it as a bargaining chip if everything goes wrong. It's almost like you're getting into the situation knowing that it's probably going to fall apart, so you're already preempting that. But this would totally mitigate that. Yeah, hedging your bets. But if that's the attitude that you're going in with, the whole thing is flawed from the outset.
Then it's gambling.
This is gambling, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, how do we, let's be grown up and honest about it. Given that we know this happens because we've seen it happen before, and given the technology and the tools that we've already got available, like I've just been demonstrating today, how should we behave? How should we conduct ourselves? Obviously, I'm going to keep doing these talks, but what happens at the moment is I end up having to pay for those talks. Sometimes they pay for travel, but they don't pay for any overnight stay if I'm going far away. They don't pay for food. I've got all these extra out of pocket expenses. It's almost, a lot of these foundations, like the Bitcoin Foundation, for example, are basically there so that their members can be sort of traveling salesmen, right? That's the kind of lifestyle they want. They want an expense account, and the lifestyle that they're trying to build for themselves is like the traveling salesman, where every time a new silver member signs up or a platinum member, they actually send someone out from the Bitcoin Foundation to shake your hand. They do a blog post, there's a whole kind of publicity around it. And I wonder is that sustainable? Like, how do you justify your existence? Because I know lots of really talented people right now who aren't making any money, even though they've got quite a lot to give. But the fact is, the economy at the moment just doesn't want to reward them. It doesn't give them what they need to sustain that lifestyle. Are these traveling salesmen, is this template that I'm talking about actually valuable and contributing anything?
Well, no, not really. I mean, yeah, it's just the old model. It's just continuing with the old model, and yeah, like with this the idea of the 7 signatures. Yeah, the good thing about that is that it's actually embracing Bitcoin and crypto because the company is actually using it in its operation. You know, not just you know, advertising for it or marketing for it, or be like Bitcoin Foundation, or even lobbying for it or hiring people to lobby for it, but it's actually showing, demonstrating how this can work. You know, we need to put our mouth. We need to, you know, experiment and do this. You know, do like you're saying with the signatures and all that. And I mean, how to. Yeah, I also don't know how to monetize it the best way. The videos or going everywhere. I mean, I think the map idea is a good idea. I think, I mean, maybe making it like, I think that Thomas was talking about a parade or something like that. I mean, yeah, like having like a party. You see what I mean? Like it's like an event. It's not just you know, guys with suits on coming in and, you know, showing you all this high tech cool stuff. It's a whole, it's like a party, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is more valuable to me than having just another coin summit with some guys with suits on that are coming in. And I mean, you know, we already have that. We've done that a lot of times. Everyone has done that. You know, we've been to these events. We know what it's like. We don't need that, you know. And I don't think people need that really either. There's no real benefit to it. Let's make it a little bit more relaxed. You know, let's make it a party. Let's interact with each other. Let's create an environment where we can, you know, spin ideas off each other and share, like we're talking about giving ideas. And I think that yeah, that could be part of the mission of it. But again, when it comes down to getting, you know, the hard funds, I also don't know. I think we got to think. We need to brainstorm about it. You know what I mean?
Well, one
I,
of
I
the
think some ways, Chris, like you were saying with the QR code for each region, I think we should try to make a small list of spots we think are the best cities, and we could put those up, and then we can have people suggest more and why they're reasoning, and we should add them to the list and do the QR code method. But we should also contact, like Tom was saying, Bitcoin companies that might want to get involved, right? Because BitPay needs people using BitPay, right? And Gillespie, who runs that company, doesn't his sister run BitGive?
hmm
Right?
Yep.
Couldn't we like maybe do something with them? Like, hey, if we get enough money or enough Bitcoin to one of these addresses, this is what we go to them with our proposal, what we want to do. When we get enough for one of these addresses, maybe they'll help match it. Maybe they'll help kick in some things, some advertising. Maybe whatever. Maybe they'll help get it off the ground or kick in behind it. I don't know, because they can benefit from that. Something like BitPay would, where people going in talking to local business owners, and maybe they can lower their fees by switching to BitPay.
That sounds pretty good. Also, you know what else I'm thinking is, and we spoke about this in the green room before we came on air, but I'll show everyone at home, is the idea of everyone putting their work on a GitHub repository. So let me just see if I can pull up what that might look like. I'm going on the premise that these days our laptop is our no, it doesn't want to show it, but you can look up github.com. Nowadays our laptops are our factories, right? This is where most of our work goes on. And there is a website called github.com which traditionally has been for programmers, but now the founders at GitHub are starting to push more towards writers, for example. You pretty much just do your work. You get the software, the Git software runs in the background. It monitors a particular folder, and all the work you do goes into that folder. Then every now and again you can do what's called a git commit, which is where you do like a timestamp of all of the work. So the program goes through all of the files that you generated. It creates a SHA-1 hash, similar to the SHA-256 that Bitcoin uses for its transaction systems. And then it creates a timestamp. And then if you want to, you can upload that to the public github.com. It goes under your name. And you can actually prove that you did that work at that time. Now, in addition to that, I'd also like to see people actually do timestamps where you actually run a program like Toggle or Rescue Time and go to look either of those up on Google. And what it is software that runs in the background that monitors what you're doing. And you can actually go to those websites, produce a report for the day. You can just take out anything that isn't relevant. So you can say, right, I was working on the World Crypto Project. You can produce a PDF, put the PDF in the Git repository. Okay, and it doesn't say like every single thing that you did. It just says like Chris spent 2 hours in Photoshop and then spent another hour in Chrome going on Twitter or whatever, and then you put that into your repository, and then you can kind of prove. Now you can fake it, but to fake something like that would take considerable effort, and you'd have to keep this going over many, many months. Like, it's just not worth you doing. So you put that in and you say to the world, right, you can go to a website like, let's get this up. So I just recently joined Keybase, which is where you can put your, or your, like, this is my PGP key, public key, this is my Twitter account. You can then go to somewhere like Patreon, and you can, I haven't actually flat out yet, I'm still building it, but people can then contribute based on all the work you've been doing. You can say to the world, look, I put all this time in. You can see from my GitHub repository that I've done all of this, I've made X number of videos, and then people can basically just pay what they want, given the amount of value that they see you providing to the economy. So it's like a volunteer-based economy. Do you see what I mean? What do you guys think of that?
I think the
That's
GitHub
more,
thing is a great idea.
how do we make that work for this, is what I'm asking.
Well, so all of the work that you would do, so like any of the designs that I would do for the website, I would be tracking my time doing those designs, because I want to make sure that any effort I expend, which in the time that I'm never getting back again, I want to make sure that that is captured, right? I want to make sure that that is accounted for. I don't necessarily want to make a claim as to what it's worth, but I want to make sure that it's notarized. So I can notarize it in a GitHub repository. If I really want to, I can put it into the Bitcoin blockchain, or I think it's a bit excessive. And then I can advertise to the world through my Patreon that I have done this work, and that if people feel that they want to, if they feel that this is valuable, they can donate, and you can give like a recommended amount, that kind of thing.
I think the GitHub thing is a good idea, and that's a good starting point. It's not very hard to do. So I just got to make an account there and then load up, some do what you said basically, and that could be an easy starting point. And that other side of yours, what was that key? What is it called?
Keybase.io. It's very new and it's invite only.
Oh.
You've also got Rescue Time, which I've used before, and that sits on your computer. It's software, it sits in the background. It basically monitors what you do, and it can produce some very nice looking graphs, and it can give you all kinds of insights into how you're spending your time. I think it's free at the point of use, but then they charge extra for like some of the special reports and stuff. But yeah, you can go, let's say, take a look at the pricing. It's like $10 a month or something like that. $9 a month or $72 per year. I would say, like, I'm also a member of the Quantified Self community in London. I help organize the meetup there, and I've been doing that for over a year now. And a lot of people there use Rescue Time. So that would be like my endorsement. And then what you can do is you can set up a project in there. And then every time you're working on the World Crypto Network, or you're working on an altcoin or whatever you're doing, just make a note of everything you do, just itemize it and upload it to a GitHub. And then if anyone cares, everyone says, look, I really, really like what Nixie Pixel is doing, let's say, and really like all the videos that she's making. Has anyone thought about how, what a world would look like where she continues to do that? Like, if you want to support her efforts, then you can donate here. And she just has to make it as easy as possible for people to donate. So that means coming up with a Bitcoin address, going onto Keybase. So with Keybase, you actually get a PGP private key that is encrypted. You can either keep it on your computer locally, or you can encrypt it on their server. And then that basically proves that, yes, this is definitely Chris's Bitcoin address. Like, you won't have to like search around on Google to see because someone else could spoof it. Someone else could create another account, but you'd actually be able to prove that that is you.
Yeah, well, we got to start somewhere, right? I think it's a good start with this GitHub thing, and yeah, maybe these tracking programs to just show how much effort you put in, or at least how much time you put into it. And like you said, there's no real advantage to spoof it.
Yeah.
But I think, let's see, we have, there is one question.
Yeah, let's address this question. I was looking at that. So this is from Ventian, and he's saying that Armory QR code is cool. Is there any way to create a link to a QR code using your own Bitcoin address as part of the link? That way you can place the link on the more info area of a video, and someone can just click on it for a QR code and scan it. Well, actually what you can do is do it on blockchain.info. So that's what we've done before, where the link to the blockchain.info, where the QR is actually also your address. So the person has a choice. They can either just copy and paste the account number from the link, or they can click on the link, and that gives them both the QR code and the account number. So that's what we've done before. The only problem with these live videos is that YouTube doesn't let you edit the description until after the video is over. At least I don't think it does. So that's always been kind of annoying.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, first impressions. I mean, for me, this is just about getting this idea out. And I want to do more of these live videos. I want to get more audience participation. And like I say, your first response to having an idea should not be, how do I protect this? Everyone goes for the domain name. Everyone does that. They come up with an idea, and their first instinct is get the domain name, get the Twitter account. I think just do it. I just think, like in this case, start designing. This is an idea that we had at Feathercoin. It was an idea that I came up with originally at Feathercoin. We did it for a while, but it turned out it was quite a lot of maintenance, and the developers wanted to concentrate more on the core code, which is of course understandable. Well, Crypto Network, we don't have that problem. We're not having to maintain a blockchain. So, we can get some, if anybody out there is a developer and you like what we're doing and you want to offer your services. And also I think it's important that people be upfront about what they expect in return. I think a reason why a lot of these startups fail is because people aren't honest at the get-go. They sort of say, yeah, sure, I've got 10 hours a week or whatever, but actually secretly they are harboring a desire to be remunerated for it in the future. We saw this with the uTorrent, right? When I found out the uTorrent actually had malware in it now because they needed to monetize, it turned out that the founder originally, when it was like all open source and it was all free software, has now decided that the business model is broken and that, in fact, he wasn't working for free, that now he would like to get paid. And that now when you install uTorrent, it resets all of your browsers so that when you start up the browser, your default homepage is Yahoo. Like, what the fuck is that? That's like violating. I feel like someone has basically got into my computer without really telling me and has basically hijacked it. It's like, you know, these hard drives and these computers are like internal organs, right? And when you invade that space, that makes me feel like someone has got inside of my body and done something. And all it takes is for people to be honest, right? Just be honest about it. Just go, look, you know what? Yeah, I really love this project and want to contribute to it, but if I'm really honest, I'll be pissed off if I don't make X, you know, by this amount of time. And then that way it saves a whole load of arguing and a whole load of confusion. Like I say, if one person gets monomaniacal and tries to take it off in the wrong direction, it only takes 5 of the 7 to fork the project, to bring all of their sheets of paper together, resurrect that wallet and go off and do it again somewhere else. So you've got all these checks and balances. I think really that the key thing is the cadence, the iterative nature of the steps. The problem is, like, our voting system is every 4 to 5 years. Well, that's stupid because the information travels across the geography too quickly, which means that regular people can make decisions before the politicians can, which means the politicians are pretty much useless and redundant now. I think rather than that, you actually set up voting on the blockchain. As issues arise at a local level, it's the local people that are able to have everything they need to respond to those situations. And you have this, you know, more of an iterative dialogue between the people. I'm not against hierarchy. I just think hierarchy should be a stepping stone to the scale that we're trying to create, and not this thing that we get stuck on. Like, oh yeah, king, you know, stays in charge and then stays in charge forever because now they've got so much energy and resources they can just build walls around themselves and stay there. I think every king should die. It should be easier to get to the top than it is to stay there. And I want us to talk about this. I want us to have more shows like this where we thrash out ideas live on YouTube. Anyone can get involved. They can send in questions via the Q&A or send in any feedback on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's voluntary and you're in the, you know, so-called hierarchy and you want to be in that group, then that's okay. You know, that's no big deal. I mean, sometimes someone has to, you know, take the reins of the company or whatever. As long as we all decided that's okay, and that's all right. And I really like this random quote random leader idea you had, because that kind of like puts everybody at a high level of responsibility, because you never know when you're going to be the main one that has the responsibility. Since it's random, right, you have to always be ready, or you always have to know what's going on. It's your responsibility to be able to step up and, you know, take that role. That's kind of the way to do it.
So we're going to wrap up in about 10 to 15 minutes, but I just want to finish, or 5 to 10 minutes, and I just want to finish on this note, right? It was Socrates who said that anyone who wants power shouldn't be allowed it. And I think one of the ways that we can gain from that insight is to say, okay, we have an organization called the World Crypto Network. Here's the underlying philosophy. It's rolling news, it's indie media rolling news that is hosted by people like you, that exists to spread awareness and inspire people to learn about the new digital economy that is emerging based on all these complex cryptographic primitives. So we exist not just to educate people about it, but to inspire them to learn more, and also to get feedback from those local people. Right now, given that is our philosophical statement, anyone who wants to be a potential, you know, part of the governing structure of that should be able to volunteer and put their name on a list. I think that list is then randomly selected. That gives you the elite 7, and whoever's in charge per quarter or whatever we decide the iterative step is should be selected by the random nonce that produces the blocks in the Bitcoin blockchain every 3 months. So let's say you're in charge for, I don't know, 10,000 Bitcoin blocks. And at the next 10,000th Bitcoin block, whatever is the first non-zero number in the nonce, that is the next person, you know, according to the, you know, the sheets that are randomly selected in the room when you first nominate each other. That's kind of how I would do it. Yeah, so these are only people that are willing to accept the responsibility. No one knows yet when they're volunteering on the site that they may be, they only know that there's a chance that they will be in charge. They don't know that they will be. And that should put off any, you know, megalomaniac, monomaniacal dictator that wants to kind of take control, because no one would take that risk, right? Any psychopath would not want to take part in this game. They'd take one look at the rules and go, that doesn't favor me.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great idea. I like this. You know.
It's a system that can still be gamed, but it takes too much collusion, and you're not there's no guarantee. It's like Bitcoin mining, right? Like what was it? Mad Potcoin said, even though you might have 51%, you're still not guaranteed you're going to execute a 51% attack. You probably need more 65 to 70% to really pull off the double spend, no problems. So I mean, yeah, it's a pretty good system. I agree. I think that's the way to do it.
I mean, it goes along the same lines as the white paper. About what we always talk about rewarding honesty and not rewarding fraud. Right.
Because if it's going to be exploited to that point anyways, it's already lost its value.
Yeah, we have to care. Like, I think what Satoshi's message was, she was basically saying, you've got to care. If you want change in the world, you've got to really want it. And I think what she did is she laid out a template and said, right, here you go. Here's the kernel. Here's the primitive that I will give you. And with this, you've got to, use your imagination and be creative. And that's why I think so many people that are earning money right now are not earning money because they're doing anything useful. They're earning money because that's what we used to find valuable. Most of the people that are unemployed that I see walking around London are spending their life savings on frappuccinos and alcohol, right? If you're a business in London right now, you either have a coffee shop, a bar, or an incubator, right? Those are the three categories that you have that are thriving businesses. You do not set up a social networking website. That is not going to get you anywhere.
So what's thriving around me right now is secondhand goods stores. They just built another one. I have more secondhand goods stores than I have grocery stores around me where I can get like fresh produce.
Yeah. So let's just finish up. So Jamie Nelson has come in on the Q&A and he's saying, you mentioned the vetting process. I guess I'm going to go through the vetting process now. Getting to know the people and building trust over time is part of it. I'm trying to get my show to be better before it's on WCN. Yeah, so the way I see WCN is like the problem with the music industry in the past and broadcasting was that they were there to take the money away from the talent that produced the content. And essentially what they were doing was making packaging. And then along came Napster and the internet, and musicians went, well, I can do this shit for myself. I don't need you. Now, it's not that the broadcasting network or the music company is completely redundant in the post-scarcity economy. It's just that they are a value add that sits on top of the talent that already exists. So the way I see World Crypto Network is it's really here to set out guidelines for, like, this is best. If we've done our job well, we will accumulate good quality followers on Twitter. We will get lots and lots of subscribers on YouTube because we earned it, because people tuned in because they wanted to voluntarily. And as a content maker and as an aspiring content maker, you can then contact us like Jamie and you can say, right, well, maybe I'm not quite ready yet, but what do you think of this? And then what we can do is we can actually help that person get the production standards up to an acceptable quality that we know people tune into because we've got all the stats. So the value that we're bringing to someone like Jamie is we're saying, look, we know what makes a good show because we've been doing this for over a year already. And so we can give you guidance on best practices, just a very minimal set of, guidelines to go through. And once we feel that you're ready, you can then hop on the network. And to begin with, we can just put you can have your own show on YouTube, but we can just put a link, we can start tweeting you out and stuff like this. And then eventually, once Jamie's kind of got everything set up and he gets the flow, he's got like a decent camera, a decent microphone, all that kind of thing, then we can actually start giving him a slot in the weekly lineup.
Sounds fair enough.
And yeah, so
I like Jamie's show. I like Jamie.
No editorial. Like it's not here to kind of like editorialize or to tell anyone what they should be saying. It's just like the BBC has. Like the BBC has guidelines on how to pronounce certain words and like how to deal with this type of situation. And that's all you need. It's just the technical stuff that needs to be dealt with. None of this kind of like attitudinal censorship where it's like you must have this stance on Israel and you must have that stance when talking about Korea and all of this kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. Sounds good. I think there's a list of somebody was nudging me that there's a list on World Crypto Net of suggested equipment. If anyone wants it, I think it's let's see, worldcryptonetwork.com. Oh, it's kind of a complicated URL. I can't really read it out loud. But if you go to worldcryptonet.com, then there is, and I think and if you click over on join, then there's a list of suggested equipment, so that your camera probably looks better than mine and your microphone sounds better than mine too, if you were to buy the equipment that's listed there. So there's already a good how-to to get started on worldcryptonet.com.
Yeah. So really, I guess what we're talking about, and we should carry this on to a show tomorrow, is liquid democracy. Just Google that, and it's an idea that's been floating around for some time now. But it basically takes the voting out of the democratic system, and actually focuses on the root definition of democracy, demos kratos, which means just the people have power. It doesn't necessarily mean you turn up to a ballot every 4 years and vote on an old-fashioned piece of paper and put an X in the box and all of this kind of thing. It actually just means that the people, the experts, the sophos and the many, the demos, have an equal partnership and relationship, where the expert doesn't become so narrowly focused on their area of expertise that they end up thinking they're in charge and that daddy knows best, but you also draw on the wisdom of the crowd that is able to form an intuitive sense. Right, so anyone can claim to be an expert, anyone can get up on stage at the Hill of Sticks and say, right, I think I'm an expert in plumbing and this is how we should do, all of our infrastructure. But then you actually draw on the wisdom of the crowd that can take a step back, outside of that situation and say, well, actually, I don't think that you are the right person, or actually, I think that guy over there who's been really, really quiet, that guy has probably got the best idea, and just give everyone all the tools they need to take part. And actually work your system, work your governance structure so that it adapts to the idiosyncrasies of the individual rather than forcing the individual to adapt to the governance structure. Do you see what I mean? Like, our schools should be there to learn about the kids as well as like the kids learning whatever the teacher's got to teach them.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for joining in today. I will probably see you again tomorrow because I think that we've had, quite a few. I'm just going to screen grab this picture from Martin because we don't have time to. Martin, please tune in tomorrow around the same time, and I will answer that question for you. And I've also had a number of tweets, so I'm going to get on top of those as well. So thanks again. Sorry about the technical difficulties halfway through, but this is Indie Media. So thanks a lot for tuning in, and I will see you next time.